Have you ever wondered why some people seem to move through life with an almost endless supply of energy, while others, no matter how much they rest, always feel drained? Could it be that what we've been taught about fatigue and strength is only part of the truth, and perhaps even misleading? From the very beginning, sacred wisdom has hinted at something deeper, that energy is not merely physical, not simply a matter of food, sleep, or exercise, but something eternal, flowing like living water, directly from a divine source. And yet, for centuries, humanity has clung to the ancient error of believing that energy is limited, that exhaustion is inevitable, that decline is the natural order of things. But what if this belief itself is the very reason we feel so weary? What you're about to discover might surprise you. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and your presence here creates a powerful connection that fuels this journey we're about to take together. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you told yourself, "I'm tired, I don't have the strength, I need to stop"? Has this ever happened to you? You may even notice that sometimes, after a long day, you feel more alive when you're doing something you love than when you're doing something you merely tolerate. Why is that? If energy were only physical, tied strictly to the body, this wouldn't make sense. But if energy is spiritual, an eternal current flowing from God within us, then suddenly the mystery begins to clear. When Jesus spoke of living water, he wasn't just offering a poetic image, he was pointing to a reality, an infinite source of renewal that never runs dry, a fountain of strength that rises up from the Spirit itself. Unlike the body's strength, which fades, this divine energy flows endlessly. It is eternal energy, and it is already within you. Yet, humanity has fallen into the trap of believing that fatigue is natural and unavoidable. This false belief restricts our potential, convinces us that we are small, limited beings struggling through life, when in fact, we are vessels designed to express something limitless. Stay with me until the end, because what we're unfolding here is more than inspiration. It's a spiritual truth that, when understood, can transform the way you experience daily life. Think about those moments when you felt truly aligned with something greater than yourself. Didn't you notice that tiredness seemed to vanish? Didn't you feel carried, sustained, even in the face of challenges? That's not coincidence. That's the flow of living water moving through you. Our culture tells us that fatigue is the result of effort, but the deeper reality is that fatigue comes from disconnection. When we separate ourselves from that source of eternal energy, we run dry. When we reconnect, we discover reserves we didn't know we had. This is why two people can perform the same task, yet one feels exhausted while the other feels invigorated. It isn't the work itself that drains us. It's the belief that we are operating on limited supply. Imagine for a moment if this illusion could be broken. Imagine realizing that the strength you've been seeking is already within you, waiting to be tapped into, like a hidden spring beneath the surface of your life. Wouldn't that change everything about how you approach challenges, responsibilities, and even your own sense of purpose? And here is where the journey truly begins. Because once we question the belief that energy is limited, once we recognize the living water within us, we open the door to a completely different way of living, one where fatigue is no longer the master, but simply an illusion to be dissolved. Stay close, because in just a moment, we will explore how this shift in perspective can break the cycle of exhaustion and reveal a power that has been with you all along. The path ahead is not just about energy, it's about discovering the eternal flow that has been quietly sustaining you since the beginning of time. If you find meaning in this message and want to keep receiving insights that uplift, inspire, and bring clarity to your journey, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, each new video becomes a reminder to stay aligned with what truly matters, right when you need it most. We often assume that exhaustion is the natural price we pay for effort. But what if the real reason behind fatigue isn't the work itself, but something far more subtle? Think about those moments when you've given your best, pushed through long hours, and yet ended the day strangely energized. Contrast that with days when even the simplest tasks feel like a mountain you cannot climb. The difference is not the weight of the work, but the level of alignment you carry inside. Fatigue does not come from effort. It comes from disconnection. Disconnection from the spiritual source that sustains life, the current of energy that flows when the heart, mind, and spirit are in harmony. This hidden truth is revolutionary once you truly see it. It means you are not a slave to your body's limits, nor to the constant cycle of work and rest that society insists is the only path. Your spirit is not bound by calories, muscles, or even age. The vitality you long for has less to do with physical conditions and everything to do with awareness. When you believe your energy is merely biological, you automatically lock yourself into scarcity. But when you realize energy is spiritual, you begin to glimpse an infinite reservoir that is not earned but received. This shift in mindset changes everything: how you approach your decisions, how you understand your capacity, and even how you see yourself. Picture it like a river of living water that never stops flowing. It is always there, waiting for you to step in. This water is not ordinary. It is pure, vibrant, endlessly renewing. The only thing capable of blocking it is the ego. Ego creates dams built from fear, resentment, and pride, holding back the natural flow that was designed to keep you alive and expanding. When you live from the ego, the current slows, and soon you feel drained, thirsty, struggling for drops when a whole river is waiting for you. Yet, when you remember the Christ within, the eternal presence that exists beyond personality, the river breaks through every barrier. That inner Christ does not just open the flow, it multiplies it, making energy grow the more it is expressed. This perspective reveals a behind-the-scenes reality of life that most people never question. What if exhaustion is not a fixed law of human existence, but a reflection of where we place our trust? The moment you rely only on personal strength, fatigue sets in like a shadow. But when you trust in divine energy, a quiet transformation begins to happen. You notice a new resilience, a freshness, of spirit that feels almost supernatural. It is not magic, it is alignment, and alignment makes the impossible possible. Think of how many times you've underestimated yourself because you believed you didn't have enough energy. How many opportunities have slipped away because the mind whispered, "I can't." These are the invisible chains of a mindset shaped by scarcity. But once you let go of that belief, you realize the truth. Energy is not something you generate by effort. It is something you allow by connection. The impact of this realization is enormous, because it doesn't just free your body, it frees your spirit, your choices, your entire journey through life. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the idea of energy as living water opens up revelations that can reshape the way you see fatigue, strength, and purpose itself. This is not just about endurance. It is about stepping into a new dimension of life, where what once felt limited begins to expand without boundaries. And here's something important. I want you to interact with this message, not just passively listen. Writing creates a deeper connection with the truth you've just heard. So put down in the comments, "This makes sense to me." By doing so, you'll anchor this idea inside yourself, and you'll also see how many others are awakening to the same hidden truth alongside you. Rest has often been misunderstood as simply stopping, lying down, or doing nothing at all. But that's only the surface. True rest is not inactivity. It is the release of resistance. Think about how many times you've paused physically but felt no real renewal, because inside your mind was still racing, replaying fears, or fighting silent battles. That kind of rest does not restore, it drains. Real rest happens when the inner friction dissolves, when you no longer push against life, but allow yourself to flow with it. It is not about escaping movement. It is about discovering a state where even action feels light, where you move without tension, where the spirit itself carries you. This is a transformation that changes not only how you experience downtime, but how you experience every moment. There's a hidden truth here that Isaiah touched upon centuries ago. He said, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength." The word wait here doesn't mean passive delay, as if you are sitting around for something to happen. It means alignment, a deliberate act of trust, an active connection. To Wait on God is to remain open, receptive, tuned into the higher frequency of divine energy rather than the noise of the world. It is not standing still, it is standing in faith. And when that alignment is present, strength is renewed, not borrowed from tomorrow, not manufactured from willpower, but drawn from an inexhaustible source that never runs dry. This is why fatigue feels so heavy. It is not the body crying for rest, but the soul calling for connection. When you reconnect, when you release the illusion of separation, you discover a paradox. The more you surrender, the stronger you become. It's as if the weight you were carrying melts away, not because the circumstances changed, but because your spirit shifted into flow. This is not about resignation. It is about entering into the current of abundance that was designed for you from the beginning. Behind the scenes of life, there is an eternal truth that most people overlook. We were not created to struggle endlessly, rationing our strength as though energy were a scarce resource. We were created to express God's limitless energy, to be channels of divine abundance. Imagine what it means to truly live as a vessel of that abundance. Imagine realizing that scarcity was never part of your design, that every breath you take was meant to connect you deeper to the source of all life. The impact of such a realization goes far beyond feeling less tired. It reshapes your entire mindset. Suddenly, the decisions you make, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you see your own journey all shift under the light of this revelation. When you embrace this truth, daily life begins to change in subtle but powerful ways. You start noticing that things which used to exhaust you no longer have the same effect. Tasks once heavy feel lighter. Conversations once draining become opportunities. And even setbacks no longer consume your strength the way they once did. This isn't about forcing positivity or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about plugging into a greater current that allows you to move through life differently. Energy stops being something you protect with fear and starts being something you express with confidence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you see that rest is not merely the absence of work, but the presence of alignment, an entirely new dimension of experience opens before you. This shift doesn't just change how you feel at the end of the day, it changes the entire foundation of how you live, work, and even dream. And here's where I'd like to invite you into the conversation. Write in the comments, "I choose alignment." By putting it into words, you're not only affirming this hidden truth for yourself, but also adding your voice to a journey that many others are stepping into right now. You'll see that you're not alone, and together these words create a space where transformation becomes real. What if I told you that fatigue, the heavy weight you so often feel pressing against your body, is not as real as you think? That tiredness, the sense of being drained, is not the inevitable law of life, but a carefully woven illusion created by the mind. We have been conditioned to believe that exhaustion is natural, that it is the unavoidable consequence of effort, of age, of simply existing. And yet, when you pause and look more closely, you start to notice moments that contradict this belief. Times when you should have been worn out, but instead felt an inexplicable renewal. Times when joy, purpose, or love seemed to flood your being with strength you didn't think you had. These moments are not exceptions. They are glimpses of the hidden truth. The body is not the master in this equation. It is the servant. It responds faithfully to the instructions given by the mind. When the mind declares, "I'm exhausted, I can't go any further," the body complies, manifesting weakness, heaviness, even pain. But if the mind affirms renewal, if it speaks with conviction, "I am alive, I am strong, I am carried by a greater source," the body responds in kind. It rises, it expands, it surprises you. This behind-the-scenes mechanism has been at work in you all along, whether or not you've been aware of it, and it reveals the profound impact your inner dialogue has on your outer reality. But here's where it gets even deeper. Much of this dialogue isn't conscious at all. Beneath the surface, in the hidden chambers of the subconscious, lie beliefs so deeply rooted that they dictate how much vitality you allow yourself to experience. These beliefs were planted early, often without question, shaping your mindset long before you realized their power. Ideas like "life is hard," nothing comes without sacrifice, or rest must be earned, run silently in the background, programming your body to feel tired even when there's no true reason to be. They form an invisible ceiling, limiting the flow of energy you receive. It's not the physical world that determines your limits, it's the inner narrative. And when that narrative changes, everything changes. This is why people who undergo a transformation of mindset often report an almost miraculous burst of vitality. They have not changed their diet, their sleep schedule, or their exercise routine. What has changed is the belief system directing the body's responses. They stopped agreeing with the illusion of exhaustion and began aligning with the truth of renewal. Think of it as a contract you unknowingly signed with fatigue. Every time you say, "I'm always tired," you reinforce the agreement. Every time you believe that struggle is the only path to achievement, you renew the contract. But the moment you question it, the moment you realize that energy is not earned through sacrifice, but received through alignment, the contract begins to dissolve. This is the journey from illusion to revelation, from limitation to freedom. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because once you see how the subconscious programs your body's response, you begin to understand that fatigue is not just about effort, but about agreement. Break the agreement, and the illusion falls apart. What opens before you then is not only more energy, but a new way of living where the boundaries of what you thought possible start to expand. And I'd like you to anchor this thought in your own life right now. Write in the comments, "I break the illusion." By putting it into words, you are declaring that you no longer accept tiredness as your truth. It's a powerful step because when you affirm it publicly, you strengthen it within yourself and inspire others to question the very illusions that have been holding them back. It's fascinating to realize that fatigue often has less to do with what we're actually doing and more to do with the way we approach it. The same activity that leaves one person drained can leave another uplifted and even more energized. What changes is not the task itself, but the mindset behind it. When you carry an attitude of resistance, when you approach your responsibilities with the thought that they are heavy, unfair, or endless, your body follows that script, and you feel exhausted. But if you approach the very same activity with openness, purpose, or even gratitude, suddenly the task becomes lighter, and your energy multiplies. This hidden truth shifts the conversation from what drains you to how you interpret and engage with life itself. Think of it like the story of the woodcutter. One works tirelessly, chopping with a dull axe, sweating, straining, frustrated with each swing. Another pauses to sharpen the blade before cutting, and what looked like a struggle becomes smooth, efficient, almost effortless. The difference lies not in the size of the tree, but in the quality of the tool. And the sharpness of your inner tool is your thought. When your thinking is clouded, negative, or unrefined, you create unnecessary exhaustion. You may be working harder but achieving less, and in that cycle, fatigue becomes inevitable. But when your mindset is sharpened, when clarity, purpose, and trust guide you, your effort transforms. You move with precision, with flow, and the same task that once drained you now feels like it carried you forward. Behind the scenes of life, this principle is always at play. Fatigue is not simply the body's protest, it is often the reflection of dull thinking, of living disconnected from a higher rhythm. And this is where divine law enters in. A law that is not metaphorical or symbolic, but deeply practical. Those who wait on God renew their strength. These words are not poetic comfort. They are a formula, a revelation about how life truly works. Waiting on God is not standing still, hoping passively that something will happen. It is a choice of alignment, a decision to sharpen your inner axe by reconnecting to the source of limitless vitality. When you apply this law, you discover something extraordinary. Renewal does not come from sleep alone, nor from escaping responsibilities, but from tuning yourself to that divine current. It is a transformation of how you live, not simply how you rest. You can be in motion yet at peace, active yet refreshed, working hard yet carried by a force that feels greater than your own. And when this happens, the impact is visible not only in your energy levels, but in the way your presence influences others. You become someone who brings lightness into heavy spaces, someone whose very attitude reshapes the environment around them. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you recognize that fatigue is tied more to mindset than to the task itself, you start to realize how much of your life can change by shifting the way you think. It's not about doing less, but about entering a different state of being where every action connects you to renewal instead of depletion. And that shift is the hidden truth most people overlook: the sharpness of thought, the surrender to divine law, the conscious choice to live in flow rather than resistance. So take a moment now to affirm this within yourself by writing in the comments, "I choose renewal." By putting it into words, you're sharpening your own axe, declaring your decision to align with a higher source of strength. You'll see how powerful it feels to not only acknowledge it silently, but to express it openly, joining a journey where renewal becomes the natural rhythm of your life. There's a powerful story about a nurse who worked long shifts in an environment where exhaustion seemed inevitable. Surrounded by stress, constant demands, and endless responsibilities, she should have been completely drained. Yet, she wasn't. Her strength seemed to renew itself day after day, not because she had more hours of rest or better physical conditions, but because she tapped into a different source. She allowed God to work through her rather than relying only on her own force. In that simple but profound choice, she discovered a hidden truth: energy multiplies when it flows through you instead of stopping with you. Her journey became living proof that service, when aligned with prayer and faith, doesn't deplete but sustains, transforming what could have been fatigue into a channel of renewal. This story reveals something essential about human experience. Motivation matters more than the action itself. Two people may perform the same task, yet their inner drive shapes the outcome of their energy. Work born out of fear, duty, or ambition tends to drain, leaving a residue of heaviness behind. But when the driving force is love, when the action comes from a place of genuine connection, the effect is radically different. Love doesn't consume energy, it multiplies it. You can feel it behind the scenes of your own life. Think of times when you poured yourself into something for someone you cared about deeply. Instead of feeling empty, you likely felt fuller, as if giving more had actually given something back to you. That is the hidden law at work. Energy rooted in love does not diminish, it expands. And here is where affirmations become such an essential tool. They are not empty words. They are commands to the subconscious, declarations that shift the program running your life. When you repeat, "I am divine energy in action," you're not trying to convince yourself of something untrue. You're reminding your deepest self of what has always been true. These affirmations create a transformation in mindset, reshaping the way your body responds, the way your thoughts align, and even the way your decisions unfold throughout the day. They cut through the noise of old conditioning, breaking patterns of fear, lack, and exhaustion. In their place, they establish a new rhythm, one of abundance, renewal, and flow. Behind the scenes, your subconscious is like fertile soil. Whatever seeds are planted there will grow, whether they are weeds of doubt or seeds of truth. For many, fatigue is nothing more than the result of years of planting the wrong seeds, beliefs in scarcity, in struggle, in self-reliance without connection. Affirmations are the intentional planting of new seeds, seeds that carry within them the potential to transform not just your energy, but your entire journey. And over time, those seeds take root, reshaping your reality in ways that might feel almost miraculous. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you understand how affirmations act as keys to reconnect you with divine energy, you begin to realize that your entire life can be reprogrammed. You are not bound by the limitations you inherited or the false agreements you once accepted. Every word you declare becomes part of the architecture of your spirit, building strength where there was weakness, clarity where there was confusion, vitality where there was fatigue. And to ground this shift in your own experience, take a moment to write in the comments, "I am divine energy in action." By doing so, you're not only putting these words into the atmosphere, you're engraving them deeper into your subconscious. Each time you see them written, you'll remember that this truth belongs to you, and you'll join others who are also choosing to step into the same renewal. Words are not just sounds we throw into the air. They are forces that shape our experience, carving paths in the subconscious and commanding the body to respond. When you repeat phrases like, "I can't," "I'm exhausted," or "this is too much," your body hears those words as orders and complies without question. You are, in effect, programming your own limitations. But when you choose words of strength, when you declare, "I am renewed, I am strengthened, I am carried by divine energy," the shift is immediate. Your body aligns with that declaration, and the illusion of fatigue begins to dissolve. Behind the scenes, it is as if every cell listens attentively to the language you use and mirrors it back to you. This is why fatigue is often less about physical effort and more about misalignment. It becomes a signal, a gentle but persistent reminder that you are relying too heavily on yourself rather than allowing the infinite source to sustain you. Think about how many times weariness has crept in, not because the task was impossible, but because you carried it as though you were alone. The moment you surrender that weight, the moment you reconnect, you realize that energy flows again, as if a blocked channel suddenly cleared. Fatigue, then, is not the end of your capacity. It's a call to shift, a wake-up message urging you to remember that your spirit was never designed to run unlimited fuel. When you understand this hidden truth, you also begin to see how much more the body is capable of than you once believed. Stories of people surpassing what seemed humanly possible, endurance, healing, breakthroughs in the face of impossible odds, are not anomalies. They are revelations of what happens when human strength connects with spiritual flow. The body is not weak, it is responsive, and when it receives its commands from a place of divine alignment, it rises to levels that defy logic. This is why you may have noticed moments where, despite exhaustion, you suddenly found the strength to keep going when someone needed you, or when love demanded that you show up fully. Those bursts of strength are not accidents. They are glimpses of your true capacity. This shift has an impact that goes beyond yourself. When you move in alignment, surpassing limits you once thought unbreakable, others see it. They feel it. Your presence becomes a kind of testimony, a living example that sparks transformation in those around you. Without even speaking, you show what is possible. This is the hidden power of living connected. It multiplies, inspiring others to question their own limits and tap into the same eternal source. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the way words shape experience, the way fatigue signals misalignment, and the way spirit expands the body's capacity are not isolated ideas. They are part of a greater revelation about how life itself was designed to function. Once you see the pattern, you begin to understand that nothing about your limits is final, and everything about your energy is meant to expand. To make this truth even more personal, I want to invite you into a simple but powerful act. Write in the comments, "I am stronger than I believed." By putting it into words, you declare alignment with this reality. You anchor it deeper within yourself, and you also give others permission to step into the same discovery. These words become not just a statement, but a seed, a decision that can transform the way you face every challenge ahead. There is a kind of prayer that is more than words, more than ritual, more than a request whispered in times of need. It is the prayer of living energy, the silent acknowledgement that God is the true source of vitality. When this awareness fills you, something remarkable happens. You are lifted beyond the limits of physical effort. It is as if a current begins to move through you, renewing strength in ways no rest or food ever could. This prayer does not demand, it aligns. It does not beg, it recognizes. And in that recognition, you become a vessel of energy that is not your own but flows endlessly through you. But even as this living current is available to all of us, we often cut ourselves off from it with the weight of our thoughts. Fatigue is rarely the result of what we physically do. More often, it comes from what we mentally carry. Worry, resentment, fear, endless cycles of what if and if only. These thoughts are heavier than any physical burden. You can go through an entire day without lifting more than a pen, and yet collapse in exhaustion, not because of what your body endured, but because of what your mind refused to release. Behind the scenes, this is the hidden truth. Thoughts, not actions, drain the body's reserves. They occupy space that was meant for flow, turning vitality into stagnation. And these patterns don't appear overnight. Many of them were planted in childhood, when the mind was fertile soil and every word spoken around us took root. Phrases like, "Life is hard," "You have to struggle for everything," or "Rest is for the weak," may have seemed harmless, but they were seeds. Over time, they grew into subconscious beliefs that programmed fatigue into our daily reality. By adulthood, we find ourselves repeating the same narratives, living out a script we never consciously chose. The body then obeys, faithfully mirroring these old instructions, keeping us tied to cycles of exhaustion that feel natural, but are not. This is why the journey of transformation is not just about new habits, but about new awareness. To break free, we must trace fatigue back to its roots, to see the hidden agreements we made long ago, and to realize that they no longer define us. The moment you expose those beliefs to the light of truth, their grip begins to loosen. You understand that "life is hard" was never a universal law, only a perception passed down. You begin to see that the weight you carried was not inevitable, but optional. And when this revelation comes, it is like sharpening your inner vision, allowing you to step outside of a cage you didn't even know you were in. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you uncover how subconscious beliefs shape your energy, you can begin to rewrite them, planting new seeds that grow into strength instead of weariness. This is not about denial, but about reclamation, reclaiming the truth that life was designed to flow with abundance, not with constant struggle. And when you replace those childhood imprints with affirmations of renewal and trust, you shift the entire direction of your journey. To anchor this shift in your own life, take a moment to write in the comments, "I release old beliefs." By doing so, you are not just expressing agreement with an idea, you are signaling to your subconscious that the script is changing. And when you see others making the same declaration, you will realize you are part of a greater movement, a shared awakening where the chains of inherited fatigue are finally being broken. The first step to reclaiming your energy is to observe your thoughts with radical honesty. Not to judge them, not to fight them, but simply to notice what is truly occupying your inner space. Most people never pause long enough to realize how much of their energy is consumed by thought patterns that run on autopilot. It's like carrying a heavy backpack every day without questioning why it's there. By observing honestly, you start to see that some of those burdens are self-imposed, stories you've told yourself so often that they feel like facts. But the moment you see them clearly, you begin to loosen their grip, creating room for something new. Your subconscious is much like a garden, and every thought you allow to settle becomes a seed. Seeds don't judge whether they are good or bad. They simply grow according to what's planted. Negative thoughts, repeated and rehearsed, take root and produce heaviness, fatigue, and limitation. But when you intentionally plant positive affirmations, you cultivate energy, clarity, and expansion. Imagine waking each day and tending to that garden with care, deliberately choosing the seeds you sow. Words like, "I am strong," "I am guided," and "I am renewed" begin to sprout into lived experiences. Over time, the landscape of your inner life transforms, reflecting the seeds you've chosen with intention. This is why affirmations hold such hidden power. They are not just motivational phrases. They are spiritual tools that align your mind with a higher reality. And Scripture gives us a precise guideline on what kinds of seeds to plant. In Philippians 4:8, we're told to focus on what is pure, true, noble, and uplifting. This is not a suggestion for positivity. It's a spiritual law for shaping reality. When your mind filters experience through these qualities, it naturally directs your energy toward renewal instead of depletion. You begin to carry within you a compass that points always toward life, light, and growth. Think about how this filter could change your daily journey. A thought of fear enters, and instead of entertaining it, you measure it. Is it true? Is it uplifting? If not, it does not deserve space in your garden. A worry tries to plant itself, and you answer with, I choose peace. I choose strength. Every time you do this, you sharpen your inner focus, aligning with truths that energize rather than thoughts that drain. Over time, this practice doesn't just shift your mindset, it reshapes your entire life, because the inner seeds eventually become the outer harvest. What's happening behind the scenes is a profound transformation. You are no longer a passive receiver of thoughts, but the gardener of your own inner world. This decision alone has an impact far greater than most realize. By choosing your thoughts deliberately, you are shaping your energy, your resilience, and even the way others experience you. People will feel the difference in your presence, not because you are pretending to be positive, but because your energy carries the weight of truth, lightness, and renewal. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you understand the power of observing your thoughts and planting only what aligns with truth, you realize that fatigue, fear, and heaviness were never the final word. They were simply the weeds of an untended garden. And the moment you choose to cultivate differently, your entire landscape begins to change. To seal this in your own journey, write in the comments, "I choose better seeds." This declaration is more than symbolic. It is a conscious decision to start filtering, planting, and nurturing thoughts that align with the hidden truth of who you really are. When you write it, you're not just agreeing with an idea, you're taking ownership of the garden within. And every time you see those words, you'll be reminded of the transformation already taking root in you. Each morning, before the rush of responsibilities begins, you are offered a window of incredible power. The mind is still soft, open, like fresh soil waiting to be planted. This is why beginning the day with gratitude and affirmations is more than a ritual. It is mental cleansing. It clears away the residue of yesterday, the shadows of worry or heaviness, and sets the stage for renewal. Gratitude shifts your focus instantly from lack to abundance, reminding you that energy is already present and available. Affirmations then act as intentional seeds, programming your subconscious with truth before anything else has a chance to write on it. When you start this way, fatigue doesn't accumulate as easily because you've aligned with strength before stepping into the demands of the day. Behind the scenes, there is a deeper law at play. Energy responds to the quality of your thoughts, following the same principle often referred to as the law of attraction. When your thoughts are pure, focused on clarity, peace, and love, they draw vitality into your being. It's as if you are in harmony with the current of life, and that current supports you effortlessly. But when your thoughts are heavy, centered on fear, resentment, or constant complaint, they create resistance. That resistance blocks the flow, leaving you drained even before you begin. This is not superstition but a revelation about how life operates at its core. Energy is attracted to alignment, and it withdraws where dissonance reigns. This is why unobserved thoughts are so dangerous. Left unchecked, they do not remain harmless background noise. They grow into decrees, commands that the subconscious accepts as truth. The mind doesn't argue, it obeys. When repeated often enough, thoughts like, "I'm always tired," "life is exhausting," or "nothing ever changes," become instructions. And the subconscious, faithful as ever, manifests them into reality, turning illusion into lived experience. Fatigue becomes not the result of work, but of programming. You end up living in a cycle you never consciously chose, a cycle written by unobserved thoughts that hardened into laws. The hidden truth is that you already hold the power to rewrite these decrees. By observing, cleansing, and affirming daily, you shift the entire narrative of your life. What once felt like inevitability, waking up drained, moving through the day on empty, collapsing into bed without renewal, can dissolve when you step into the authority you have over your thoughts. This is the beginning of transformation, the moment where you realize you are not a victim of your energy, but the author of it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because once you see how every thought you allow is either an invitation to vitality or an agreement with exhaustion, you begin to treat your mental space with a new reverence. You start noticing patterns, replacing them, shaping them, until your subconscious no longer works against you but becomes your ally. And when that shift takes place, the impact is visible not just within you, but in the way you move through your journey, inspiring others with the quiet strength of someone who has tapped into a deeper flow. To anchor this shift right now, I invite you to declare it with your own words. Write in the comments, "I choose clarity." By doing so, you're not just leaving a trace of agreement, you're training your mind to value awareness over autopilot, planting seeds of renewal instead of fatigue. Each time you see those words, you'll be reminded of the decision you made, and that decision will keep unfolding into transformation. We've been taught to equate energy with sleep, to believe that the more hours we close our eyes, the more restored we'll feel. But how many times have you woken from a full night's rest only to carry the same heaviness with you into the day? That's because true renewal does not come from the length of rest, but from the quality of thought you carry while resting. Physical sleep restores the body, but mental renewal restores the spirit. When your inner world is weighed down with worry, fear, or unresolved tension, no amount of hours in bed can free you from fatigue. But when you lighten your thoughts, releasing resistance and choosing trust over anxiety, your energy multiplies in ways that defy explanation. Renewal is not about pausing life, it is about cleansing the inner atmosphere so that the flow of vitality can move unhindered. This is what makes rest such a misunderstood concept. Rest does not mean inactivity. Rest means inner peace. Think about the divine example. When God rested, it wasn't because his energy ran out, but because the work was complete. Rest in this sense is not collapse. It's fulfillment. It's entering a state of harmony where nothing feels lacking and nothing needs to be forced. That is the essence of true rest, and it is available to you even in the busiest of seasons. You don't have to withdraw from life to find it. You only need to enter a different state of being, where your soul breathes peace in the midst of activity. This perspective transforms how we engage with daily responsibilities. You can practice working in rest, and when you do, your effort becomes spiritual flow rather than struggle. It is the difference between swimming against the current and letting the river carry you forward. Every task becomes lighter when approached with awareness, presence, and a spirit of peace. This is not passive, it's active alignment. You still move, you still act, but you do so without friction. Instead of draining you, your work begins to energize you, because you are no longer working alone. You are working in union with the current of divine strength, and that current never runs dry. Behind the scenes, this is one of the most overlooked revelations of life. People imagine energy as a resource to be rationed carefully, as if it were a limited supply that dwindles with every step. But energy is not diminished through use, it is blocked through resistance. The more you resist, the more tired you become. The more you flow, the more energy multiplies. This hidden truth reshapes everything about how you see your journey. It means that even in moments of demand, you can experience renewal. Even in long seasons of responsibility, you can remain refreshed. And it means that the real key to transformation lies not in doing less but in carrying peace into whatever you do. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you understand how rest is not an escape, but a state of alignment, you realize that the very tasks you once saw as burdens can become sources of energy. What drains you is not the work itself, but the mindset with which you approach it. Change the mindset, and the impact is immediate. You begin to move differently, live differently, and the journey that once felt exhausting begins to feel like flow. To affirm this shift within yourself, take a moment to write in the comments, "I work in peace." These words carry weight because they are not just affirmations, they are decisions. By writing them, you remind yourself that peace is not something you wait for after the work is done. It is something you bring into the work itself. And each time you see this truth expressed, it strengthens your own choice to step into the kind of rest that renews endlessly. Real rest is not found in stepping away from life, but in moving through it without resistance. When your actions flow from the soul, they carry a natural ease, as though something greater than yourself is guiding each step. But when those same actions are driven by ego, by pride, fear, or the need to prove, you feel the difference instantly. The body tightens, the mind races, and what could have been effortless becomes heavy. The ego always tries to carry life on its own shoulders, and in doing so, it burns through energy that was never meant to be consumed that way. Living from the soul, on the other hand, is like moving downstream with the current, where effort is transformed into flow, and rest is found even in motion. One of the most powerful ways to step into that flow is to activate the inner energy circuit, to consciously visualize the divine presence moving through your body like a river. This is not mere imagination. It is a practice that realigns you with a truth already at work within you. As you picture energy streaming from the crown of your head, down your spine, and into every cell, it feels as though something is being cleansed. Tension begins to dissolve, breath deepens, and a quiet strength takes its place. This visualization reconnects you with the living water that Jesus spoke of, reminding you that renewal is not something you wait for. It is something you allow. And the more you allow it, the more you realize it was never absent, only obstructed. Those obstructions are often emotional blockages, the unseen weights we carry long after the moment that caused them has passed. Guilt lingers like a shadow, anger simmers beneath the surface, sadness presses like a fog, and resentment hardens into walls. Each of these emotions, when left unresolved, creates stagnation. Energy that was meant to flow freely becomes trapped, cycling in tight loops instead of circulating with life. It's no wonder that fatigue follows. Your spirit is trying to move, but the flow has nowhere to go. These blockages are not punishments. They are signals, pointing to places within you that need release. The hidden truth is that energy was designed to move. Just as rivers carve valleys and wind clears the air, your inner life was created for circulation. When guilt is acknowledged and released, when anger is transformed into clarity, when sadness is allowed to teach and then move on, the energy circuit opens again. What felt like heaviness becomes fuel for transformation. You discover that emotions, when processed rather than resisted, don't deplete you. They renew you. The very feelings you thought would drown you can, when surrendered, become channels for deeper strength. This is where mindset becomes more than a personal choice. It becomes a spiritual discipline. To choose release over holding, trust over fear, surrender over resistance, is to step back into harmony with the way life was meant to flow. The impact of such decisions is not only felt within your own body but radiates outward. Others notice the lightness in your presence, the clarity in your words, the quiet resilience that inspires without effort. Behind the scenes, they see the fruit of alignment, though they may not have the words for it. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you recognize that emotional blockages are not permanent walls but temporary dams, you begin to see that you hold the key to releasing them. And each release is not just freedom from the past, it is the opening of new energy for the journey ahead. To affirm this process within yourself, write in the comments, "I release the weight." By doing so, you are not only naming your decision, but anchoring it. These words carry power because they declare to your mind and spirit that the time for stagnation is over, and the flow of renewal has begun to move again through you. When the energy circuit within you is opened, the question becomes how to keep it alive, how to maintain that sense of flow, so it does not fade with the pressures of daily life. This is where habits step in, not as rigid obligations, but as steady anchors that hold you in alignment. Simple practices such as prayer, affirmations, and even conscious presence in your body work like daily tuning forks, keeping you attuned to the divine current. Prayer lifts your perspective beyond yourself, affirmations reshape the patterns of your subconscious, and presence brings you back to the moment where energy truly flows. These habits act behind the scenes, often quietly, but their impact is profound. Without them, the energy circuit can grow stagnant again. With them, it stays vibrant, alive, and ready to multiply. And multiplication is exactly what begins to happen. Because unlike physical resources that diminish when given away, spiritual energy expands in the act of sharing. Love does not shrink when you extend it to another. It grows. Attention does not deplete when it is generously given. It deepens. Service is not a transaction that empties you. It is an exchange that enlarges the vessel within you, making space for even more vitality to flow. This is a hidden truth that defies human logic. The world teaches us to conserve, to protect, to hold back, but the Spirit operates under a different law. The more you give from alignment, the more you receive in return. Think about the times when you have offered a listening ear, a helping hand, or a word of encouragement. You may have started tired, reluctant, feeling as if you had little left to give. Yet, in the very act of giving, something within you was renewed. The fatigue lifted, replaced by a sense of clarity, warmth, and unexpected strength. This is because service reopens the channel of divine strength in a way nothing else can. It strips the ego of its constant demand to conserve and proves that energy is not something you own, but something you carry through connection. When you serve without expectation, the flow of renewal comes rushing back, filling the very places you thought were empty. This principle transforms the way you see your journey. No longer do you approach life as a zero-sum game, where every action drains you a little more. Instead, you begin to realize that life is abundant, that energy is infinite, and that your role is not to hoard it, but to allow it to move freely through you. The impact of this mindset is extraordinary. It turns ordinary tasks into opportunities for renewal, relationships into vessels of growth, and even challenges into moments where the circuit of divine strength becomes more visible than ever. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you see that habits sustain the circuit, that sharing multiplies energy, and that service renews strength, you begin to understand that the path to vitality is not about retreating from life, but about engaging with it more fully. It is about stepping into a rhythm where giving and receiving are no longer opposites, but part of the same endless flow. And in that flow, fatigue loses its grip, replaced by a kind of renewal that becomes your natural state. To seal this truth in your own life, I invite you to declare it with your words. Write in the comments, "My energy flows when I give." By doing so, you affirm this hidden law within yourself, and you'll see how powerful it feels to not only recognize it, but to name it. Each time you read those words, your own and those of others, you will be reminded that the act of giving is never the end of your energy, but always the beginning of more. Breath is something so ordinary that most people overlook its extraordinary power. It is the first act of life and the rhythm that sustains us moment by moment. Yet, rarely do we notice its depth. Breathing is not just biology, it is communion with God. Every inhale is a reminder that life itself is being poured into you, not by your own doing but by a source far greater. And when you bring awareness to this truth, the simple act of breathing becomes a spiritual practice. Conscious breathing dissolves the noise of the mind, quiets the weight of the body, and reconnects you with the flow of divine energy. In those moments, you realize that renewal is not distant, not complicated, but as close as the very air filling your lungs. Behind the scenes of this practice lies a revelation that changes everything. Breath carries more than oxygen, it carries intention. When you breathe with awareness, you are not just filling your body with air, you are opening yourself to alignment, inhaling peace, exhaling tension, inhaling strength, exhaling fear. With each cycle, you are reminded that you are sustained by a source that never runs out. It is a hidden truth most people miss. Your breath is a constant invitation to return to presence, to trust, to union with the divine. And all of this points to an even deeper reality, the Christ within as the ultimate energy source. When you recognize Christ not as a distant figure, but as a living presence inside of you, fatigue loses its power. You begin to see that the strength you've been searching for does not come from effort, from external validation, or even from perfect conditions. It flows from the indwelling presence of God. This is not symbolic or poetic. It is a living current that ensures endless renewal. When you live from that presence, your energy is not borrowed, not rationed, but continuously replenished. This recognition transforms the way you see yourself and your journey. You no longer identify as someone struggling through life on limited fuel, but as a vessel of divine abundance. Every action, every decision, every step is infused with power that is not your own, yet is inseparably part of you. This is the hidden truth that reshapes fatigue into freedom. Your energy does not end because the Christ within you does not end. And when that awareness takes root, you discover a life aligned with divine power, a life where renewal is the natural state and exhaustion becomes the exception, not the rule. The impact of living from this awareness extends far beyond your own experience. Others begin to notice it in subtle ways. They see the resilience in your steps, the calm in your presence, the light that seems to move with you. You inspire not by trying but by being, and that inspiration becomes part of their transformation too, showing them what's possible when alignment replaces resistance, when divine presence becomes the anchor of daily life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when breath becomes communion and Christ within becomes the source, every moment turns into an opportunity for renewal. Fatigue, fear, and limitation begin to lose their hold, replaced by a steady flow of peace and power that carries you forward. This is not a promise of a life without challenges, but the revelation of a strength that outlasts them all. To anchor this truth in yourself right now, I encourage you to write in the comments, "Christ within renews me." When you put these words into writing, you are more than agreeing with an idea. You are affirming a reality that shifts your mindset and deepens your alignment. And as you see others declaring the same, you'll realize you are part of a journey that is shared, a movement of renewal unfolding in lives across the world. If you've journeyed with me all the way to this point, I truly believe it's because something here spoke directly to your heart. And if that's the case, I'd love for you to stay connected with this space. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way, every time we explore truths like these, you'll have them right at hand when you need them most. Also, let me know in the comments that you made it to the end. You can simply write, "I'm with you until the end," or even, "This message was meant for me." It's always powerful to see how many of us are walking this path together. And if at any point during this video you felt a sense of clarity or renewal, leaving a like is a simple way to mark that connection. And before you go, don't stop here. The journey continues. There's a video right here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me over there.